Hey guys, it's just a quick video of my remote tap setup for my bar that I'm in the middle of finishing up here. Don't mind the mess, we're still putting everything together as far as like, the sink over here and stuff like that. But anyhow, I got a bunch of the different parts that I pieced together from kegworks.com. They were pretty cool supplying me with a bunch of the stuff. So what I have here is a 4 tap system off a tower, and it is glycol cooled. That being it's remote. And underneath here just have the fridge. But what's interesting is underneath here is actually the trunk line coming down from underneath, and it goes back in there, and it's actually routes basically down here, around there, and it goes underneath of the sink, which I still have to reconnect. But got the sink and it goes back there. It goes back into this room that's behind here where the AC system for my house is. So it's an unfinished room. But anyhow, I got this here, and I'll show you the rest of the stuff, the the real meats and everything. So let's get started with the mess. So in here is this is the unfinished room in here. I'll show you that first. And this is just where the trunk line comes back from. There's the sump pump for the bar sink. Anyhow, that's just like a big service loop. It's the extra that I didn't need, so we just kind of left it there. It probably wouldn't hurt if we didn't have it, as much of it. It'd be a little easier for the glycol to not have to cool all of it, but it is what it is. So if we go back in here, here's just parts and stuff. What I originally did was I had this freezer here, and then I had this freezer over here, a much smaller one. And the glycol wasn't here, and it just wasn't enough. It was not cooling it enough. I had it inside this bucket here with a pump inside, and it was going, and it was not working at all. So, and I'll get to it, but I ended up doing the AC window unit mod that a lot of people do. But in here we've just got 4 kegs, and just a CO2 bottle. I have everything turned off right now, just not using it just at the moment, but it all works. Everything's good. This is even, the glycol lines are even sweating. I don't know if you can see that or not. Probably off my hands. It's that cold. It's pretty awesome. Working great. But the lines just come in here, and inside there's the glycol lines sit in the middle, and there's 6 beer lines all the way around. I'm only using 4 of the 6 because they come in a minimum of 6 beer lines if you use a glycol setup. Maybe eventually I might get a bigger tower that has 6. Or just have them there as just extra. It's not a big deal. But anyhow, got a CO2 distribution block here. It goes to the 4. And if I want, I've got plenty of room here where I could maybe put a bigger keg, like a half keg or something like that. Or, possibly squeeze 6 in here if I want to. Maybe some corny kegs for some homebrew stuff. So just some simple temperature controllers. This one here is for the actual freezer. And it comes back here and just goes through there. And this freezer actually just kicked on, the light turned on. And I just have the probe just floating in free air, as you can see there. And it's actually really, really efficient. And we just did a simple little collar, much like other people do. And we used, I got this gasket material off Amazon that's like a D shape. Trying to get the focus in there. And it's got some double-sided tape. And we put it down, and as soon as we push down on this, it's sealed great. And then we put expanding foam in all the corners and everything like that, as you can see, as well as expanding foam around the trunk lines. So here's the main trunk line here. It's pretty sturdy, pretty big. And then the glycol one is much more flexible because there's only 2 lines going through it. All right, now to the glycol setup. I'm actually going to turn this off just so it's a little quieter. Well, I'll leave it on to show you guys what we got, and then I'll turn it off. But basically, it's just the AC window unit, and the condenser, which usually sits right about here. You just very, very, very gently take this copper line, which is actually frosted over right now, as you can see, just because of how cold it is. And you get it to go inside the cooler, and it cools the glycol. So I'm going to just shut that off momentarily so it's quieter. So, you got your 2 temperature controllers. The bottom is the set value. That's what I'd like it to be. And that's what it actually is. So it was cooling it down because you have a set value, but then you also have upper and lower limits if you're heating or cooling. So we're cooling here, so the upper limit's like 4 or 5 degrees above that. So when it hits 30, 31, 32, whatever I have it at, I think it's 31 or 32, it's going to kick on, and then it's going to come down until you're good to go. Now, once it does that, it'll bring it down, it'll stay there, and it'll just have a continuous cycle. There's a bunch of other settings. These are pretty cool. I think they were 20 or 30 bucks on Amazon each. And like I said, they have a heating and cooling plug. So for whatever reason, if you needed the heating as well, it's there, which is pretty cool because you could do both on one unit. It'd be awesome if they could do cooling on both, but I get it. I mean, setting that up, you probably wouldn't get as best bang for the buck or the cost. So originally, like I said, we had that freezer over there, so we had a longer trunk line, but the Glycol line we just have running around into here. So we just notched the cooler there and notched it here. So inside here, you can see it's nice and frosty, which is great. It's what I want to see. We've got the condenser that's in here, and it's got a nice little isolator built up. So might have to add a little bit more Glycol in here, just because we don't want this to freeze or anything like that. But anyhow, it basically just sits in here and it runs, and it's just going to chill everything. And the blue line is the send line, so it's coming out of the top of this pump here that I got off on Amazon. And then the return is right here. So as you can see, there's the trying to get a good shot for you guys. Yeah, so I can just melt that. That's the return Glycol coming back. So it just runs there and it's good to go. And let me try and get this to sit back how it's supposed to. There we go. We just finished this up, so got a couple things to still trim and stuff like that, but we just want to make sure it was functional. And then the really, really easy part is this model, which is a Frigidaire model. It's like the standard 5000 BTU unit. The big problem that people have when they go to do this mod is that they're trying to trick the temperature sensor to working. If you get a mechanical switch AC unit compared to an electronic switch AC unit, it's going to be way easier because the electronic one, there's going to be a circuit board in there, and unless you're extremely good with circuit boards and finding a way to trick the system, you're going to end up having to, which is where this heating plug could be actually pretty beneficial for you. The real, I don't know if you want to call it trickery or redneck way or whatever you want to call it, would be you have a small like desk lamp and you put an incandescent bulb, not LED, because the LED is not going to put off enough heat. You put the incandescent bulb right next to the temp sensor, which you're going to put probably somewhere out here or whatever, just out in the open, and you put it next to it. And the idea is that, but you want to plug that into the cooling. And that and you would plug your AC unit into your normal plug, which I have a power strip on here for everything. And that once it gets too warm, the cooling plug would turn on the lamp, and then the lamp would heat the temp sensor enough, and then it's going to think, hey man, we need to turn it on. This room, because it thinks it's in a room, right? This room is now too hot. So anyhow, the nice thing about this unit is, and I wish I had it apart, but I just put this cover back on. It's just a screw, and usually this actually is mounted over here, but we trim this down to get a little bit more room. But in there's a couple red wires, and there's actually a wiring diagram right on top of here. And if you look, your main switch, which is going to be your switch right here. Obviously, high cool is where we want to be. So we've got our high cool line, and the important guy is the red, because you can see that is the dot, meaning that's where it's connecting onto high cool and going to the thermostat. The thermostat is that guy underneath that switch, which this is totally useless now. And it just goes over, and then it connects to a red and goes actually out to the little temperature sensor, which is actually right here. I cut it off, don't need it. It's got a little clip, and it's got this kind of like plastic insulated liner that goes around the sensor itself. Don't need it. You just have to put a jumper. Mine, it was a red wire and a pink, but it's going to be super obvious if you know anything about electricity at all, that coming out of this, behind this knob, there's a sensor, and it's got a wire coming in and a wire coming out, and also coming out of that box is that sensor there. So you just cut the wires and you jumper them together so that they're not separate. And that's all it wants to see, is that those two wires are going into that box. And as soon as this sensor right here is triggered, there's a mechanical switch, hence why it's mechanical switch, not electronic switch or electronic board style compressor or AC unit. As soon as that switch is triggered, it's going to send voltage. So we're just making it see voltage at all times. And that's how you can use this temperature sensor here. It's super sweet. But anyhow, so we've got, pretty much everything in here is working well. Now I'm going to go ahead and plug this back in. And it's actually down to 25 degrees. So even though we shut it off, that guy in there it's really, really cold. And that's the nice thing, is that because instead of using this idea I had, which I saw online, which some people have had luck, but because I've got about 25 feet of trunk line, the freezer is trying to chill itself through air, and then the air is going to come out and it's going to try and chill the bucket, and then the bucket is going to try and chill that glycol, is what I originally had. And the pump is putting off heat. It just wasn't a good idea, which is fine. I mean, I was, that freezer was like $100, and because I didn't technically modify anything, I could even take it back if I wanted to, or use it for pizzas or something. So from there, we're good to go. So anyhow, but now this pump I got here, it's just one off of Amazon. I got a little bit bigger one because I have a longer, run, and usually it's, mine is, I think it's 2,000 gallons per hour or something like that, and a pretty good lift height. It's one for like a fountain pump, because I wanted something that was going to be running all the time, because you want to keep everything cool all the time. So if we go back out here into the bar area, but if I grab these, they're cold. They're really cold to the touch. If you guys have any questions, let me know. But this is kind of just a piece it together type of deal. Probably total, I may have spent, not including the beer, of course. I might be in the just over $1,000 range, and the expensive part is going to be this tower. If you can find one, a Glycol one, cheaper, awesome. If you can find a way to convert an air-cooled one, which I know they have some, that there's a company I saw that sells blocks that sit behind this. And you can basically run a line up through here with the beer and connect and kind of jumper each little block together and then come back down. You could do that and save a little bit of money. So, if you're if you love, like me, I'm in the middle of redoing this basement, you want some beer on tap, man, it's all possible. Just kind of have to budget it out. And, figure out what you want to do. I just had a position where I don't really have any space besides this little mini fridge, which can't hold but a few 6-packs, that we wanted some beer on tap, man. So anyhow, thanks for watching, guys. If you have any questions, just let me know. But yeah, man, drink on.